The Black Management Forum recently held its annual conference, AGM, and Achievement Awards dinner at the Sandton Convention Centre in Johannesburg. The selected theme for this year's conference is 20 years into democracy, what is holding South Africa's economic transformation back? From ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe to General Ria Piecha, Commissioner of the South African Police Service, they all gave their views on transformation and equality.
I want to make a point that says, Landman described modernity as a journey and not a destination, not a journey without problems. But the difference is whether we're prepared to confront problems every time we come across them. The third point I want to talk to is that radical doesn't mean adventurous. Yeah, it is not adventurous because sometimes people that if they throw themselves down a cliff, they are very revolutionary and they disappear. Those are the 3 points I'm going to be talking to. When the ANC takes resolution and translates them into government policies, those are commitments. For such policies to have any impact, all role players in the economy must play their role. There can be no radicalism if it is expected that government will drive this radical problem alone. It will not happen. It will remain a dream. In an economy where the private sector owns 70%, it must play its role.
I want to start off by saying any change, even a change for the better, is always accompanied by drawbacks and discomfort. It is worth noting in our day, when you prompt ordinary South Africans for their opinion on the state of our country, you get a mixed bag of answers. Most of the answers are filled with emotions, littered with skepticism, whilst many would like to express optimism, they are not easily able to boldly express hope. There is some tendency to talk down our future at every opportunity. We are committed to living up to the expected standards of our constitutional mandate, aligning our goals and objectives to the National Development Plan as a South African Police Service. And I want to say to you, as the Police Service, we shall not dither. We shall not be swayed. We will fight each and every case with all the resources that we have, with all the intellect available for us, because we believe that together we can be part of moving South Africa forward. And we will not allow those that are against progress to stop us from going forward.
Loyiso Mbabane, chairperson for the Employment Equity Commission, spoke on the topic, a new radical approach to transformation and employment equity. I caught up with Dr. Mbabane and asked him what he thinks is holding transformation back.
Well, several factors. I think one is the fact that we don't have clear outcomes or goals to achieve. So when you say less than 20%, or women, for instance, women are about 23% of top and senior management. What are they supposed to be? What is the percentage that women should have been by when? We don't have that. We don't have a goal that says that by 2015 women should have been 25% or 30%. Now the Black Management Forum tried to do that in 1993, 1994 when it came with an affirmative action blueprint. The A blueprint came with Basotho-head targets. Those targets said that by 2000, this was 1993, 94, by 2000, 40% of non-executive directors should be black, 30% of executive directors should be black, and it went all the way down to senior managers and middle managers, almost 50%. Now that was not even achieved in 2000. It was not even achieved in 2013. In 2013, you don't have 40% senior managers being black. Yeah, you got about 19.3% black African and so on. So it's lack of clear targets to be achieved. Number two, it's leaving it, this whole notion of leaving it to the employer to sit down and plan and come with a report that says that in 5 years' time I'll be like this, in 5 years' time I'll be like that. The employer can say anything. They can say 3%, they can say 13%, they can say, look, I'm in a difficult province, I'm in the northern province, I'm in mining, there are no women in mining, and so I'm going to have 4%. The legislation doesn't allow the department to challenge the percentage itself. It has no benchmark to do that. So The PE codes have got those benchmarks. They do say that, look, we're not interested in the detail. We can't get into the detailed micromanagement. But we want for you to be level 1 or level 2, you must, in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, have this percentage in this sector, have this percentage of ownership. So I'm suggesting that the employment equity legislation should really be upgraded and overhauled so that it's in line with the PE legislation.
And speaking of that employment equity legislation, we know that that act has been amended. Are you optimistic about the amendments and how they're going to assist in implementing transformation?
I think there are 2 areas where they'll assist. One, the fines have been made very serious. Okay, so those people who need a stick, there's a serious stick, because not all rabbits enjoy carrots. Some of them are allergic to carrots. So the rabbits don't want to move because of New South Africa, because of the benefit of diversity. There's a big stick. There's a turnover that's going to be used. Before it was just 500,000 rand fine for the first offence and so on. Now it could be 5% of your turnover. And if you're a repeat person who doesn't want to transform, the turnover increases. Also, the fines have been increased from 500,000 to 1.5. So that's one thing that is important. The other thing that they've streamlined the whole compliance thing. The DG doesn't have to send you a report saying you're not complying, and then you send an appeal against the report, and then you go to the Labour Court, and then you appeal against the Labour Court. That has been cleaned out. So that's going to assist, but we're still going to have the same philosophy, the same legislation that expects reports, expect you to consult your employees and everything else. And my main challenge is that won't be addressed by law. That will be addressed when the Black Management Forum, the black institutions are cooperating with the Department of Labour. And the Minister of Labour yesterday, who was here in the conference, appealed to the PMF to partner with the department in enforcement. That partnership is very important because the PMF has got branches in each and every town and city. They'll be able to say the Department of Labour is coming to review company X and Y. Let's work with them beforehand. Let's give them some intelligence. And let's even expose if the reports are not saying what is correct. So that partnership really is going to introduce quality into the analysis, which is a good thing.
Let's talk about these employment equity commissions that we see in a lot of corporate spaces. Some have gone to the extent of calling them toothless bodies that really have no effect. Should government be more stern from your perspective? Well,
start with the Commission for Employment Equity, which I chair. That commission advises the Minister of Labour on EE issues. Now, for us, advising is important in the first couple of stages, 10 years ago and so on. But you can't continue advising. Now we've got all the laws, now we've got the amendments. I think we need a commission that's going to have teeth. We need a commission that's going to say we're going to review the situation of women in industry X, Y, Z and call upon the industry to make submissions. That commission doesn't have those powers. So we're saying either that commission for EEs, it gets given serious powers to review and to take action and to speak on behalf of people who are facing discrimination. Or the new commission for PE, the PE commission that is being established by the Department of Trade and Industry, which also has got employment equity in its PE scorecard. That commission should be strengthened, should be given a lot of powers in terms of being able to take action against it. So unless we have a commission that's effective in dealing with this thing, I think we're going to continue having meaningless commissions and committees. As it is now, somebody cannot phone you from a company and says, look, we're facing a lot of discrimination in this company or in this industry. We are a commission for EE. Can you come and assist us? The commission doesn't have the jurisprudence or even the resources to do that. It's a part-time commission or people chosen from NEDLEC. So there needs to be a serious review of that. And my submission to the PMF conference, they must engage the Minister of Labour and Trade and Industry on maybe amalgamating the two commissions. The current commission for EE, amalgamate it and merge it with the PE commission that's being formed, but also strengthen its powers and its resources. And just perhaps referring to your latest report, where are the key problem areas at the moment, possibly areas and possibly a particular population group? No, I mean, for the past 10 years, the report has been saying the same thing. The Commission for Employment Equity reports almost like a broken record. The progress is low in terms of black African representation in senior and middle and senior management. Some people quickly run and say, yeah, but at the bottom in skills levels, middle management, there's progress. But we expect progress there. That's where, in fact, we don't even have many white people to get in anyway. But where it matters most, where decisions are made, where even the salaries and other things are significant, is in senior and middle management. So consistently there are black people. In fact, what we said last year, we're even seeing sometimes a zigzagging process where black people move to 21% 1 year and the next year at 19% and 19.3%, which means there's no consistent, concerted effort in private sector. Women have always remained below 20%. they're hovering between 23% in senior management and 19%. For over many years, and yet women, we've been emphasizing the empowerment of women in South Africa in all sectors. 20% is not good enough. And then we even break down into certain sectors. Some sectors are far more slow in advancing women than others, and some of them are obvious because traditionally they've been male-dominated, such as agriculture and mining. But mining also happens to have a charter, one of the first sectors to have a charter. So again, what is the excuse for the mining? 2002 already, more than 10 years ago, mining charter took place. And the mining indabas keep on lamenting the lack of progress. So generally, there's just this supposed voluntary compliance not taking place in the country. And I think the issue should be now, is it not about time we started imposing specific outcomes and targets and focus on those rather than to worry about the industry inside the company and what is happening there.
Ideally, what should our targets be? Let's say 2030.
Well, I went back to the BMF Basotho head. BMF Basotho head said that it was 1993-94. By 2000, non-executive directors in companies should be 40%. Executive directors, meaning top management, should be 30%. They went down to saying senior managers 40%. I was proposing that for 2020 we just add 50%, just for lack of a barometer. You just add 50% to those targets. So what was supposed to be 40% becomes 60%. You add 50% of 40, add 20 to 40, you get 60%. What was supposed to be 30% of top managers, it becomes 45%. If you just did that to make them stretch but still reasonable, 45% of senior managers in South Africa being black in 2020, it's a very modest challenge, given that you're dealing with 75% of the population. But at least what it does is several things. One, it avoids this thing of me worrying, is it regional demographics, is it national demographics. I'm just trying to be 45% black African top management. You can say the same thing with women. Just say 50% of all your targets must be women. Then I don't have to be, then I've got a guideline, because what industry wants is certainty, what investors want is clarity. So that will assist us with that as well. And when you go down to the level where it's supposed to be 50% middle management, you add 50% to that to 75%.
More on the Black Management Forum's annual conference after the break. Welcome back to the special on the Black Management Forum's annual conference 2014. Philisiwe Mthethwa, the CEO of the National Empowerment Fund, took to the stage and addressed the audience on the relevance development finance institutions have in supporting black business.
We need to come up with creative and innovative ways of supporting our black entrepreneurs. Another observation that I've just been picking up from the market, I don't know if Program Director in SG, if you are aware that there are a lot of companies, mining companies in South Africa, who will come and tell us that they're involved in some restructuring programs of some sort. So basically what they are doing, they are selling some of their mining assets. I don't know if BMF has really applied their minds to this, because in all of these restructuring programs that I have observed, a lot of the assets are being grabbed by the Chinese. I'm not saying that is a bad thing, but we always talk about the need for the country to attract foreign direct investment. But I'm just worried that this time again, we may lose out. I've looked at about 5 recent transactions, and in all of the 5, I have not seen a South African company or black-owned company coming forward and saying we are actually acquiring, and these are strategic assets, by the way. So I don't want us to wake up one day and say, so where were we? We were here.
Ms. Mthethwa, thank you so much for speaking to CNBC Africa this afternoon. From your perspective, are development institutions doing enough to finance black business in South Africa?
Thank you very much, Christine, for having me. I think we have done our bit, but if you look at the level of demand that we are dealing with, it's huge. There's just no way anybody would expect the state-owned development finance institutions to do this alone. You had the figures earlier that initially we had set a target of about 26%. We're saying 26% of the South African economy, even though we're doing it on a sectoral basis, that 26% of that should be in black hands by 2014. And we're still sitting at about 3.9%. So it means we still have a very long way to go.
What's slowing the process down?
It's a whole range of issues. I don't think there is real commitment to the real cause of transformation. A lot of it has really happened as a tick box approach. People will just look at, this is the rating that we should get. A lot of the companies, some of them did a little bit on the transformation side, but a lot of these companies that we're looking at are still predominantly white. But funding obviously is going to be one of the important things that we should look at going forward, because the total funding requirement, if we were to use the JSE as a proxy, currently stands at about 2 trillion rands. So even if you could just give black people about 50 billion, we're not saying we need to reach that level. It was a target that was set 15 years ago. We have not reached, achieved any of those things that we're talking about. So funding, but also it's about the types of financing arrangements and financing instruments that you put in place to fund these BEE transactions. Because I'm sure people would hear a transaction that was worth billions, was concluded, and I'm sure they're thinking, so why are we still sitting at 3.9%? Very little that has happened at that level. Because you do a transaction, you must still repay the loans. If it's an option structure, at the end of that option, you must find ways of financing that particular option. So a lot of the transactions are underwater. Yes, they were concluded many years ago, with a lot of big fanfare all over the country, but a lot of them have not really yielded the kind of results that we're looking.
From the NEF's perspective, if you can take us through some of the progress that you've seen on your side in terms of assisting with regards to the funding situation. Do you have a lot of people coming forward that can't be funded for some or other reason, or are there no people to be funded?
I think from a funding perspective, especially if you look at the NEF, the funds that have been allocated to us, I think they are very little. Obviously, if we want to achieve more, it means we need to just get a little bit more, either from the fiscus or maybe by other ways of raising funding from the private sector. But our act doesn't allow us to go and borrow from the private sector. But with the little that has been given to us, I think we've achieved phenomenal results. We've funded about 549 transactions in transactions that are worth about 5 billion rands. When I say 500, I would say about 80% of those are sustainable businesses. So it's about funding from your small enterprises, and it goes all the way up to actually moving the SMEs to becoming global players within the South African economy and in the continent. So we fund both your SMEs, and it goes all the way up to the big companies. We provide startup financing, franchising. We have a lot of franchises that we have funded. We have partnerships with a lot of these franchises in South Africa, like your McDonald's and the petrol stations as well, like your engines. We have a partnership with BP. So what BP will say to us is that as part of their transformation objectives, they are now looking at funding black-owned enterprises. So they will then come to the NEF in order for us to support them, with that requisite funding. So we've done about 5 billion worth of transactions. So that is what would be sitting on balance sheet. But if you look at the off-balance sheet activities, so those are the partnerships that we enter with our local and international partners. That's where we start greenfield projects from scratch. You'll be conceptualizing the idea, coming up with the feasibility and the pre-feasibility studies, taking those projects all the way up to financial close. They were sitting with a project pipeline that is worth about 30 billion rands, and we know that those projects will create about 80,000 new jobs for the South African economy. So we're very excited about that, and it just talks to the power of partnerships between your DFIs or the public sector working together with the private sector. Because in the 30 billion rand portfolio, if you look at the portion that came from our side, it was about 600 million rands, and the rest we were actually able to crowd in private sector investors into the projects, because the projects were now ready to be,
Has that been easy to get private sector to play ball?
Not during the early phases of that pre-feasibility planning. So which is why earlier on I was saying we need a lot of funding that will go into what I call venture capital financing or seed capital financing, because there we are still testing the concept, we are still testing the ideas, we are still looking at the technology. So there is a lot of risk taking that happens at that level. But once we have moved it from pre-feasibility to bankable feasibility, and when it reaches financial close, that's where you actually see a lot of interest coming from the private sector. So it means we need to invest more in your risk capital facilities.
What sectors are presenting the most opportunities where perhaps the NEF would be looking to fund more small businesses?
It's infrastructure, the huge infrastructure development drive that the South African President Jacob Zuma was talking about at the State of the Nation address, that the South African government has set aside 836 billion rands for infrastructure development initiatives that will involve rail, roads, you name it. So if there's this huge budget, then our enterprises, black enterprises and SMEs, they should say, even in the nuclear energy space that we're talking about, what are the specific investment opportunities that exist in those sectors? The nuclear energy. So obviously South Africa will not be able to provide the reactors. We don't have that technology. But there are small little things, that will still go towards the production processes of these things that we're talking about. Renewable energy space, we're seeing a lot of opportunities there. As a country, we've invested more than 100 billion rands. So even there, we're saying to our enterprises that they should also try and position themselves in these new, the so-called new industries. So we don't have any excuses anymore. We must just get on with the work.
After 2 days of interactive debates on what is holding South Africa's economic transformation back, the BMF is hoping the discussions will feed into the national agenda on transformation. Koko Khumalo, who is the BMF's deputy president, was happy with the outcome of the event. Ms. Khumalo, thank you so much for talking to CNBC Africa. Just your view of how the summit has gone, and perhaps maybe what the key issues were this time around.
As a BMF, we are very happy with the outcome, the attendance, the panelists, the messaging that came through from government. What really is of importance to us is just the affirmation of the importance of Black Management Forum in South Africa 20 years into democracy. And it makes sense that we remain relevant and important, because the Employment Equity Act and BBBE, those are our acts. So we looked at where we are today in terms of transformation. We commissioned our own study, a transformation barometer. The preliminary results, 50% done, indicates that we are not anywhere close to achieving what we had intended to when the two acts were introduced, in particular private sector. Government has done very well. So everyone in the panel, the people who gave the speech, including the participants, said to us, BMF, you are too quiet to really remind South Africa of the importance of transformation. Because if the majority are not feeling to have a sense of belonging in corporate South Africa, then it's not encouraging even for young people to work hard, to study hard, and end up being an executive in a corporate in South Africa.
That was actually going to be my second question to you. We heard several speakers talk to the fact that the BMF has gone quiet. So having heard that feedback, what can we expect from the BMF?
We will do exactly that, of being vocal. We will assert our authority and our position. Our reason for existence and a purpose is to develop black managerial leadership skills. So we are going to make sure that our own members have the commitment to play their role as well within the provinces, at national level, as the presidency. We are going to talk about what matters most. We are doing it anyway, but it wasn't vocal enough. So our research, the transformation barometer, eventually going to be a transformation master plan, a decision of the board of BMF last year, is going to be talking back to South Africa and saying, we as the BMF are not happy. Every year we're going to be issuing our own statistics on sectors that matter most in mining, in finance, in agriculture.
My last question, when will the BMF get to a point where they believe we have reached transformation? When would we say we have transformed?
When the demographics in business represents exactly demographics of South Africa, then we'll say as BMF, we are happy. Other than that, we will exist until that has been achieved.